Welcome to the Serve Campus podcast, a resource for campus ministry workers across Canada. We provide education, resourcing, and coaching for people leading ministries on post-secondary campuses. Our goal is to encourage and resource you in your vital work on universities, colleges, institutes, wherever you are. And now, here is your host, John Engels.
Well, it's great to have my friend Kelly Johnson on the show today. He's been the chaplain at the University of Calgary now for 25 years. And happy silver anniversary, Kelly. This is quite a milestone for you. Does it mean that you're getting older, or?
I thought I would hit my stride by the time I'm 55, and I'm not there yet. But this pandemic has certainly made it difficult to celebrate this milestone already.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Kelly, it's great to have you on today. You're going to be talking about all things chaplaincy. Always appreciate you as a friend, but also on our guiding group lead team for Serve Campus Network. And you are hailing from Calgary with the PAOC Alberta Northwest Territories District. And we would just love to hear a bit about who you are, maybe a favorite pastime or hobby that you have to kick things off today. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm married. I actually met my wife during university, and I was doing my undergrad at the University of Calgary. We met here, and actually I brought her for her first date on campus, and that kind of her introduction there to university was to me. We now have 4 kids, ranging in age from 25 to 18 later this year. And so loving that. I have a dog named Bruno and a canary named Pablo or Pablito. So,
okay.
Yeah, we've been married 30 years as of the last summer. So we're celebrating 31 this coming summer.
Oh, man. Well, congratulations on that. You've got such a lovely home and wonderful family. I certainly have enjoyed my visits to Calgary with you over the years. And what was your undergrad degree in?
So I did a Bachelor of Education at the University of Calgary. And then I did that with a focus with teaching English as a second language as a minor, because we thought that we would perhaps go and do something overseas, even before I met Bart. That was kind of my intention, was to go overseas. So I love it that God has brought us back to the campus, because now the world has been coming to us. But you asked maybe about a pastime too, something that during this pandemic year, I like reading, do a lot of reading, but I've really enjoyed picking up a lot of new authors and female authors. And there's a Canadian woman named Louise Penny. And I don't know if you've read any of her work, but she's brilliant. She's got this Inspector Gamache series. It's not just a crime novels, but really a lot about brokenness, about loss, death, freedom, our choices. It's been really quite beautiful to read these novels, and so I'd highly recommend it to your listeners.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. That's awesome. No, I haven't read that particular author, but I have read another woman author named Danielle Strickland, and she rocked my world with her book. But anyway, Kelly, tell us about your journey into chaplaincy. How did you wind up doing what you're doing?
I actually grew up in a small town, Saskatchewan in Alberta, and my dad moved to Calgary in my grade 12 year. And so when I came, actually I did a couple of years with YWAM then, different places in the world, in Mexico City and West Africa. But coming back, I really felt the call of God to do my undergrad. But when I came here, coming from a town of 200 and having been doing small stuff. And also, frankly, hearing in churches, be careful about those godless places, the university campus. A bit nervous coming onto campus, but I remember one of my first experiences was coming up to the registrar's, the enrollment office, and a staff member smiled at me, and it just changed my whole outlook for what I was going to encounter on the campus. Realized there's wonderful people here, and I also realized that God was here. God had been at work on our campus. So over the course of my 5 years that I worked on an undergrad, I got involved in student leadership and Christian club, did some other activities on campus with different groups, and I really just saw that God was at work. In fact, actually taking Barb on the first date on campus, I remember talking her ear off and walking her around campus, and I think I was just wanting to lay everything out there to this very attractive person about where I saw work on campus, the energy, vitality that was here, all the great things, but also the desperation maybe and the loneliness that was also here, and the people were downcast like sheep without a shepherd. And so I remember that being a pretty significant time, and asking her later, I don't feel like I've gotten to know you. So you didn't let me talk, but I just felt as a young man who was thinking, hey, this might be somebody who God has for me. I really wanted to put all my cards on the table. So that was really my heart. This was a great place, but it was also filled with a lot of hurting people.
Yeah, for sure. When did you feel like the chaplaincy really for you began to get traction, in terms of some fruitfulness and can you tell us, unpack that a little bit? Sure.
So I was teaching for a few years before I came back to the campus, and I was my last year before coming back to U of C was on a hospital ship in West Africa with mercy ships. And so I heard from some city pastors just that they've been putting a lot of energy and finances into kids ministry, youth ministry, but then that they were finding a lot of their young people were disengaging from their spiritual life and from church life. And so they were thinking, well, we need to, out in BC there, the Bernice Gerard had been there for years. There'd been a chaplain up at U of A, but University of Calgary was not started by a theological college. And so there was this desire on behalf of pastors to see something started. And so I came back thinking that I would give 3 or 4 years and just pioneer this. And then lo and behold, 3, 4 years in, I started realizing this is actually a great place where the needs of the world and my interests were really coming together. So I think right from the beginning, I just found it was almost like a sweet spot in ministry that I never realized that I might discover so early in life and ministry. And so, pioneered that, started things with our district. They were incredibly generous and just saying, go and love Jesus in front of people. You don't have to wave a denominational flag, but we want you to just be there in Jesus' name. And so I had to start from scratch as far as raising funds and to encourage our district about ways that they could support that. But like I said at the beginning, I thought maybe, I didn't want to be like some others that I'd seen who'd kind of burned out with their passion in the first one. And even we've seen on campus, right? A group come on and try and win the campus semester in a year and realized that I was kind of burning more bridges than I was building. And so I thought, if I'm going to be here, I want to commit and be here for the long haul. And so I think that has served me well and served our campus well and served the church and kind of the mission of God well. So very thankful for it. But I would say all the way along, it's just kind of being obedient in the present semester. And as you know, campus ministries changes a lot through the year and year to year and semester to semester and even throughout the semester. But I love the diversity. I love the variety of what we get to do here. So,
yeah. Well, you got that missionary DNA going from YWAM, which served you well. You good welcome from the district, plus your calling, being obedient to the Lord. But it doesn't happen all overnight, does it? And you had to raise some funds. That took some work, and you had to establish yourself and gain credibility and trust, with the university. So for those who may be thinking about chaplaincy, they're asking, well, what does it take to become a chaplain? And so they may or may not have to fundraise, depending if a church is deploying them. But, what does that look like for someone that is interested in becoming a chaplain on campus? And, what advice would you give to them?
No, that's good. It's a great question. When I first started here, a city pastor said, "Okay, here's $800 and go to it." I'm there, what? We'd had supporters with Mercy Ship, and we kind of released them and saying, our denomination is going to be getting behind this, but then realized that was it's going to take a little bit more work. So that was a bit of a shock. I was doing full-time graduate studies at the time, as same time as starting this. So working 20 to 30 hours a week on campus, and realizing a bit of that is building the connections with city pastors, with our previous donors. I think it helped. My wife actually grew up in a missionary family. Her dad was a pilot. Her mom was a nurse down in the Amazon in Brazil with Mission Aviation. Helped that my parents were involved in ministry. So actually thinking about that, probably just our own generosity to mission and the things of God, and seeing that modeled in our homes. It didn't make it an awkward thing. Like some people really struggle with the fundraising aspect, but I've just always seen it as, here's an opportunity for people to partner with what God is doing. And I'm not having to go cap in hand begging. I think some people feel a lot of reluctance about that. But I've just seen, I think because we've tried to be generous and our families have tried to be generous in all sorts of different ways. That's really helped. It's really helped me having my wife, Barb, who's like fully behind. Like it's not, we've just said, well, if God's going to provide, he'll provide. And we had to walk out through some lean times, but God has provided actually beyond what we thought. We thought we'd be serving God in some kind of podunk corner of the world in the orphanage or something like that, and not really, seeing abundance. And I guess I would just feel like we're part of the few percent in the world that really is incredibly fortunate. Maybe that's my world vision background from my dad, and just realizing any of us in North America are incredibly privileged. And so how do we kind of pass that on and steward that and invest in, like one of the things I actually helped do is my role as chaplain at one point was helping the Faculty of Humanities, Religious Studies, had a professor position, and some money had been raised in the 80s, but they didn't have enough money to kind of fully fund this chair of Christian thought. So as a chaplain, I thought I want to get behind, Christian engagement with not just the Bible, but with our culture and with academia. And so I actually helped to chair something. We raised $1.5 million to get that fully funded. And that was, within my first 5 to 8 years or so on campus here. And so just realizing, there's ways to invite people into what God is doing, and it's not about any kind of lack or, there's just a lot of opportunity that people have to participate in what God wants to see happen. And so the more that we can be generous, I would say that's a pretty big thing to encourage your young staff in.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that, Kelly. And generosity is part of your life. I know that, and your family, and it's multiplied. And that ministry really at University of Calgary has extended to other campuses. So tell us a little bit about that. What does your team look like now? It's not just you.
Yeah. And, in many ways, I've seen Barb as part of the team, even though she's played a role behind. We've had a lot of faculty, a lot of staff and students in our home. But I think as we've been curious, which should probably be another thing that I would think be really important for your young ministers, is to just be curious of how God is at work. And so I had a student actually leave from the University of Calgary to go to Mount Royal, which at that time was a college. And he just said, nothing's happening here. There was a student club, but really there was no traction happening. So he said, can you do some worship things like you've been doing at U of C? And I said, well, maybe if we find you, we've got you, and let's find a couple other people. And so we started that semester, and I think by the end of the semester, we had 20-some students gathering over the lunch hour just to worship and intercede for their classmates, pray for what God would have for them, both on campus, but also in the future. And so that started, it kind of took some time, actually, just going there. There was a bit of a gatekeeper at the institution at that time, not wanting to kind of give us the formal, hey, you're here officially, but we were just there for a number of years. And as we sought to, I guess, be curious about how God was at work there, got to know other faculty, staff, and administrators. And so then they asked us to provide more of a chaplaincy role and connected in there. And actually, we're also at SAIT, Southern Alberta Institute of Technology. And so SAIT was the one who approached us when they ran into some problems trying to sort out religious issues on campus. I think probably 20 years ago, people thought, oh, religious issues are going to go away. God's dead and all these sort of things. But people have realized that actually those issues and meaning and purpose, the quest for understanding of the divine even, are front page news many times, sometimes, not in a good way. But so I think institutions have realized that we need to have help from our faith communities. And as we've done this well, we've actually been invited into other places. So we're also have a student group that started at Bow Valley College. So between University of Calgary and Mount Royal University, State, Bow Valley College, actually we have other students through Alberta University of the Arts. And we also have some students that connect with us through Ambrose, which is a Christian university in town here. But, it becomes a relational work. We would like to formalize a little bit more of that at Bow Valley College in particular, but it's been hard this year.
Right. Oh, it's great to see how the Lord is extending the vision of campus ministry in Alberta. What's your hope in the next 3 years or so for continued expansion of having a presence on campuses there in Alberta?
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking about that urgency, that we have a message, we have some hope, we have things to offer, but also God has been incredibly patient with me, with us. But there are across Alberta and even here, there's lots of need. We have tens of thousands of students who really haven't heard in a viable way how much God loves them and that He's for them. And so I probably would love to see more people help us administer. Everybody loves to kind of go out and have coffee and talk to students or plan big events or programming. But we probably need to figure out how to, I don't like using words like scalable and all that, but in some ways, we need more systems and things in place. Even, with a lot of the programming that we're doing, we could do it a lot better. I love being kind of a personal, relational, one-on-one sort of person. But as we've grown, like we have now Phil Odd, he's the chaplain with me at the University of Calgary, kind of our spiritual animator for all of our campuses. One thing that we've moved our monthly meetings to kind of online this last year, like everybody. But it's been fun to see people from Evensong out in Halifax join us, people from Ontario, Manitoba. We've got a really solid group, some people from BC. And so there's opportunities, right, to grow and to invest in people, our next generation. So in some ways, the pandemic has actually created some opportunities for us as we rethink how to engage. But yeah, I guess we want to equip and engage our students, give them opportunities, but we do need more workers. And I think that was one of the first things as I was coming on campus here, pray the Lord of the harvest for more laborers. Because there are people that are distressed and downcast like sheep without a shepherd. And so it's been, I think I'm eager to see that happen, but it's God who is the Lord of the harvest, and His timing is sometimes a little different. And so I think I've grown in my ability to trust that Spirit is at work and trying not to run ahead of where God is at, but also knowing that God has this huge heart for this next generation. And I think, apart from seasons of death or dying in people's lives, university is one of the last great times where some of those big questions are up for grabs.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, you talked about workers and praying for workers. Of course, that's the Luke 10:2 prayer, Lord. We pray for workers because there just aren't a lot of people knocking down the doors for campus ministry. So how do you cast that vision and inspire new workers to come your way? How has that happened for you?
Primarily, yeah, it hasn't been out, in the colleges or graduate schools. I think where our people that we've gotten the most traction with are actually students who come to know Jesus on campus themselves. So whether they're working on engineering or communications degree or science degree or whatever, and they get to come alongside their classmates, and they get to be involved in leadership opportunities with us. We call our ministry in Calgary here University Campus Ministries. And so UCM Calgary kind of does a lot of different things. It might be the social justice aspect, but it might be Bible studies, it might be discipleship. A lot of it is social things. We just had a young man from Iran join us, and he's curious, interested in the songs and the worship, but it's the community that's been so beautiful for him that has been attractive. So, I would love to see students come to know the Lord and then say, hey, maybe I can use my passion for God. Maybe they have some giftings in business or engineering, but they also want to do something with it. So, yeah, just trying to, because I don't want to take away from their calling out in our culture, part of the culture. Well, like I really believe that want to invest in our nurses so they're great in healthcare or doctors. And we have some great student stories, really, of people who realize that God is for them, but they don't necessarily have to minister in a church or even on a campus. They can minister through their work. And so we've got students all over the world now, which that probably to me is one of my things I'm most proud of, seeing the ways that students have actually taken their passion for God, but also their passion for science or for water or for even physical, literacy, movement and motion, and done a great job in sport or sports psychology, whatever. So those things are really fun for me.
Yeah, that's the thing about longevity. When you're in a place as long as you have been, you're able to see generations of students graduate and continue to track with them around the world. Yeah, that's what I love about campus ministry. It's these relationships just go on for a lifetime. Yeah,
and that's actually, you were talking about donors earlier on. I've never made that big of a deal of it, but it's been kind of fun to see some of our students who've gone on to do some significant work in different sectors of our society, but who said that they want to kind of invest and sow back into our lives, but also into the life of other students who need to have opportunities to engage with coming alive to everything that God has for them.
Yeah, that's very cool. Let's talk a little bit about your role again, just coming back to that. How do you navigate equity, inclusion, diversity as a chaplain in a multi-faith environment? Do you find yourself at all restrained or constrained? And if so, how do you navigate that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm generally very positive about that sort of thing. There are frustrations, but I think I mentioned the curiosity piece. I think to be a great campus minister, you have to be a learner. So you have to be willing to say, where is our culture at right now? What are the issues? We've dealt with a lot in this last year around health and wellness issues, around racism issues. Some of the anti-Asian violence and the Black Lives Matters issues that have been raised, I think are critical for us. And I think a good Christian theology would say that, Jesus was kind of those who were outside the camp, that Jesus was for the poor and the marginalized and the oppressed. And sometimes Christians need to be held to account for ways that we haven't used our power well. And so I think I've learned from people on campus, from a lot of people who faced discrimination. But they're tricky issues. I don't know, apart from, I think if you're really rooted in the Word and the love of Jesus, then you're going to be compelled to kind of be in the muck and the mess. And it's not an easy thing, but I think that's where Jesus would be. And I think, sometimes the things that we have to say as Christians is really challenging for those in the academy who have a different perspective than us. But I think if they can see the heart of God and the compassion of Jesus for the issues that they're facing, a lot of times we can work together in ways that really help honor. Like even so early on here, I helped to create a multi-faith center. We were just Christian chaplains. Some people are, oh, Kelly, what in the world are you doing? Why are you working with the Muslims and the Buddhists and the Jewish people here? But I think it's kind of like Paul, Mars Hill. You have to recognize and honor that there's these other voices. And I've grown to appreciate some of the other paths, but I think I've become more Pentecostal, more Trinitarian as a result of engaging with some of these different traditions. And so I felt like it's been good for me. I recognize there's a tension. A lot of our kids coming from pretty communities that are probably pretty cocooned, and they haven't really engaged much with others. It kind of blows their mind to find such good friends in some of these other traditions, but also it helps them grow in their own faith. And so yeah, there's those things. Obviously, at this age, young people, sexual identity issues are always huge, and those aren't going away. But the pendulum swings too, right? And there's it kind of goes back and forth a little bit, because I think there's frustration with the weakness or shallowness sometimes of ways that our world wants to identify us. And so we're so much more than our identities that sometimes the world wants to say are important. So I think, you can poke and prod as a maybe that prophetic calling that we have as Christians. I'm more of kind of a, even there's a lot of different ways of being a chaplain on campus. I think some people they like to poke and prod at the issues maybe within our academy, but also within our church. I'm a little bit more of an institutional priest in a way, or a denominational shepherd, although like we have probably 19 different denominations that support us on campus, just because they like the way that we engage and love on their young people. But, it's people who aren't even Christian. So I think the way you do it, people they see that almost more than what you're saying. So the way that you do it. And so if we can come in with respect, but also willingness to disagree and say that that's not a reason to shun you or to judge you, we can still have a really good conversation. I think there's a lot of learning for all of us involved.
Yeah, that's well said, Kelly. And, the gospel really informs what we do as chaplains, what you do as a chaplain. But probably even more than that is, like you referred to, the love of God, the abounding love of God, his forgiveness, his grace, all those pieces, when they're lived out and it's a reality among students and faculty, that's huge credibility right there. And it can go over and above words in that sense, right? As you're modeling Jesus. So, I think that's the genius of, the 25 years of work there that you have, as well as the rest of the chaplain team that works with you, that they have that same attitude, that really not there on campus to try to pick a fight, because realistically, the university can say, well, we'll see you later.
Well, and there are issues. So you have to have a lot of wisdom. You have to have a lot of trust that God is going to lead and guide, because um, there are probably hills that I could die on every week. That as far as kind of say, well, it's my way or the highway sort of, and they would say, okay, goodbye. Um, so you do need the wisdom of serpents, I guess, the innocence of doves, to say, how do we minister with truth and grace?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.